Wednesday. It's so hard to get good help. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, so essentially a continuation of the same message. Wanted, faithful and prudent stewards. Anyone who has had a management position knows that one of the riskiest parts of the job is hiring. Because when you hire people, you do not know, you don't know the people, really. They can speak, you see the resume, but there's no guarantee, right? Very often it can seem like rolling dice. What's read in the resume and what's spelled in the cut. They must be faithful and prudent. In being faithful, they don't seek to impose their own vision or desires over his, but rather serve the master who has given them their commission. You know, she hired someone to help in the backyard. Fine, and he came, he was prepared, he was ready to work, and he started working. And then, soon enough, we realized the problem. And the problem was, he wasn't listening to her. This is what I want you to do. This, and that. And he started doing his thing without even asking her. Is there a problem with that? That's not good stewardship. Right? Now, you and I have been given, see, we humans are the highest form of animal, right, on earth. We have been made, assigned by God to be stewards over all those in the sky, flying in the sky, the birds, and all those swimming, the fish in the sea, and all those animals roaming around the lands. But what do you and I do? That's why destroying the environment is also not good. It's in the Bible. We're supposed to be good stewards of the earth, right? That's why number one it said wanted, faithful and prudent stewards. Look at number one, underline. We must do not what we want to do. We must do what the master wants us to do. Is that clear? That's the lesson in number one. We must do what God, the master, wants you and I to do. It's not what we want to do. If we follow what we want to do, what happens? Big screw up. Big time screw up. Number two, tasting one's own medicine. Having been hired, it would be foolish not to expect to be held accountable for the trust. There you see that accounting again. When the trumpet sounds, we will all be standing in front of the judgment seat, and we will be making an account of everything we did. If you've been hired as an employee, don't you give an account? The boss has the power or has the authority to ask you questions about your job, right? And if you're not responsible enough for your job, what happens to you? You get promoted. It's not a good thing that will happen to you, whatever it is, right? Number three, management styles. The two types of stewards have very different management style. One beats the servant, the other distributes the food allowance at the proper time. What does that mean? Those who work know what this means. There are people who climb up the ladder stepping on other people's toes. They climb up. And others, what? They distribute the food allowance at the proper time. Others, at workplace, they give you what's due you. They give you a reward for good work, and for bad work, what do? They make you stand still and not get promoted, at best. If not, you get demoted, or at worst, even fired. Thursday, Jesus' fire must be my own. Do you think that I have come to establish peace on earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. Is there sense in this? Is there sense? Do you make sense of this? Wait a minute. Jesus, you're supposed to be the Prince of Peace. What are you talking about now? You didn't come here to give peace? You didn't come here to establish peace? You mean you came here to sow division? Animosity? Number one, the spark that must become a blaze. Divine conflagration in the hearts of his disciples. Jesus endured the true baptism of immersion, steeped in the pain of Golgotha, and precisely so that our own baptism would not be a mere ceremony. This reminds me of the young adults, if you're parents, okay, go to CCD, they drop their children and then they leave. Or they go to the parking lot and sleep in the car. The main teachers of these young minds are the parents, not the catechists. You believe you heard me? The real teachers of these young minds are supposed to be the parents, not the catechists. The catechists are just a help. Now, the problem is this. How can an adult share what that body doesn't have? Can you share what you don't have? Can I share with you a faith that I myself don't have? That's impossible. And that's the problem now with our church. Many of these young adults are having children, and they themselves don't have faith. They themselves don't have faith. And what happens? What faith? What sort of faith can they transfer to the kids, the children? Nothing. They just send them to the church. Let the church take care. What do they do instead? Okay, I'll drop him off, and then I'll go to the movies. I'll go to the mall. Whatever. That's why the faith is like it is. Let's see if I remember the Latin term. Providentissimus Deus. When Pope Leo XIII in 1839, he had an encyclical. He said, Catholics must study the Bible. Yes, 1839. And then he followed it up. It was followed up by Pius XII. I remember when Leo XIII had that encyclical in 1839. I was watching EWTN. In 1839, Pope Leo XIII had this encyclical. And then Pope Pius XII in 1943, that was the Second World War, and he had another encyclical, Scripture Studies. Study the Scripture, he said. Afflante Divino Spiritu. That was the name of the encyclical. That's why I don't understand why there are many parishes that do not have Bible study classes. It's the only way you can make sure that the parishioners have the faith that they have to have. So the Mass that they go to will have more meaning. Right? Otherwise, it's just a ritual. You don't want to come here for a ritual. You want to come here to meet the Lord. Right there in the Eucharist. So the spark that must become a blaze. That's what Jesus meant, what he said. Peace at any price. You have those underlined? Underlined text must be highlighted. You know that. Christianity will often find itself in conflict with the powers of the world. We want to be considered nice people, yet our convictions will at times bring us conflict. May the spark of our soul be a strong enough flame to accept those moments and avoid the cheap peace of acquiescing with the Lord, with the world. What Jesus is saying is, we don't fight. What Jesus is saying, don't go and don't ever accept faith is being attacked and you don't say anything. That's what Jesus is saying. St. Peter, in one of his epistles, said, at any point, you must be prepared to defend the faith, to defend the hope that you have. This hope. God has dominion over our hopes, but we have to be prepared to defend that hope. In the epistle of St. Peter. That's the meaning of, I didn't come to sow peace, to establish peace. I want you to be different. We have been set apart. You have been set apart, you're different. And put up your dukes. Should Catholics be people spoiling for a fight? Courtesy, gentleness, and the final details of charity should characterize the person who wants to be like Christ. They unite, not divide. There are tough, sad moments when being faithful to Christ means a head-on collision. But when it's a question of where our first loyalty lies, there's no debate. Our loyalty must be to Christ first. That's the essence of Thursday's gospel. Oh, today's Thursday. Today. That's the gospel today. If you hear Mass today, that's what you hear. Luke chapter 12, continuation. Worst comes to worst. If you have to choose, let's say your parents say, okay, you choose us or your Jesus. Who do you choose? Luke 12 says, our loyalty must be first and foremost to Jesus. Okay? Friday, weather reports. Remember? You know when it's about to rain? Why do you not judge for yourselves what is right? Seeing signs. Superficiality inhibits our own spiritual progress as well. Seeing signs isn't so much a matter of being able to pick out the shade, but of deep prayerful consideration of the love of God in our lives, God's presence, and paying attention. The signs, number 3. The signs that invite us to be more Christ-like are the ones to which we need to pay the most attention. Saturday, the fig tree. Somebody promised me a fig tree. Oh yeah. Somebody in my other class in Rahway has promised to give me a fig tree. They're coming back another week. They have a big fig tree in their backyard, so they will give me. I've been wanting to have a fig tree because it reminds me of Jesus. That's the fruit that Jesus wanted to eat. And they're very expensive in ShopRite. So, what are we saying here? You know, if you look at this is Luke 13. This is the gospel tomorrow. If you look at the gospel of Luke in 13, this is about the fig tree. And if you look at the gospel of Mark, equivalent to the fig tree, in Mark it doesn't make sense. It's totally confusing. Because in Mark, you have an account where Jesus encountered the fig tree. He was hungry. He wanted to eat. But Jesus knew it was not the season for the fig. Right? Jesus knew that it was not the season for the fig to have fruits. And yet he cursed the fig. An all-knowing God, all-loving God, all-merciful God would curse a fig tree for not having fruit, knowing that it's not the season for the fig to have fruits. Does that make sense to you? It's confusing, isn't it? It's confusing. But Luke is not as confusing. Because what Luke did is, he had other sources and he added. What Luke and Matthew did to the Gospel of Mark is, they improved it. If you look at the Gospel of Mark, it has errors in grammar and errors in style, in very confusing presentation. So if you look at Saturday, number 1, the figless fig. It's a fig tree, but there's no fig. When the Father comes to us looking for fruits, it's because it's the time for fruit. That's number one. We understand that from Luke 13. But if you look at the Gospel of Mark, it's not the case. It's confusing. What will we say to the Father if He has given us 10, 20, 40, 60 years to bear fruit that finds none? How old are you? How old am I? How many fruits have you borne? It's not just about looking nice, as a fig does. It's about bearing fruit. Fruit that will last, according to the plan of the Holy Father. So it's not about looking nice, looking good, being accepted by most groups. It's not that. It's a question of fruits. Do you bear fruits? Some people think, oh, I have a student who has 5 children, and the wife is expected to bear another child next month, and he has no plan of stopping. His reason, I have more credits in my income tax return, the more children. They're putting a limit to that now, you know that. There's a maximum number of children you can have to gain credits for the earned income credit. So, look, the fig that was almost toast, cut it down, take away, it serves no purpose. If you don't bear fruit, what use do you have? You see number 2? It was a judgment that was soon to be lifted, both in the case of the fig tree and the application to our lives. Am I sufficiently grateful for God's continual mercy towards me and others? What fruit do you bear? Do you bear fruit or no? It's a question of fruit. Leave it. The gardener said, give it one more chance. Archbishop Luis Martinez is a beautiful image. He speaks of suffering as a manifestation of love. That should be highlighted. Suffering as a manifestation of love. Next Sunday, you know that. I gave you Sunday, next Sunday. Now get your few minutes, Bible materials. Go to inspiring article. Remember in Luke chapter 12, we're talking about stewardship. Bible study materials, inspiring articles. I don't mean, don't skip this at home. Okay, you must read everything. If you want to gain much from the class, you must read all these materials every week. Please. How does a Catholic philosophy promote stewardship? Do you know that the tithe is not a Catholic teaching? However, we follow the corporal acts of mercy. Food to the poor, clothing to those in need, and so on. In addition, one of the precepts of the church is to support the church in their maintenance and activities. It's our obligation to the church. And there's a discussion on stewardship. And then next, we have here Pope Benedict XVI. We cannot speak of new evangelization without a sincere desire for conversion. If you yourself have not converted your heart towards the Lord, you cannot evangelize. Because you cannot speak from your heart. You know, the most effective teachers are those who speak from their hearts. Not those who read from the book. And you know when people speak from their hearts. They have the conviction